Hi, good morning. It's me, Charlie. Welcome to the weekly reading with Women in Leadership. I'm so pleased to be able to bring you these weekly readings, which go live on our YouTube channel every Sunday. We talk about the topics on Monday for Mindset Mondays, and then we can just really start our week off strong. Choosing and deciding for ourselves, and having a positive mindset moving forward. So I'm super excited to bring you a new feature today. I got a document camera so you guys can follow along in the book with me. Are you ready? We are currently reading The Secret Power of Yoga by Nischala Joy Devi. And this week we are on book 2, chapter 7, Niyama, Evolution Toward Harmony. 5 inner facets of Ashtanga Yoga are presented here as Niyama, allowing us to continue our journey inward toward wholeness and discovering our divinity. Through simplicity and continual refinement, Saucha, the body, thoughts, and emotions become clear reflections of the self within. Saucha reveals our joyful nature, and the yearning for knowing the self blossoms. When at peace and content with oneself and others, Santosha, supreme joy is celebrated. Living life with zeal and sincerity, the purifying flame is ignited, tapas, revealing the inner light. Sacred study of the divine through scripture, nature, and introspection, Satvaya, guides us to the Supreme Self. Through wholehearted dedication, Ishvara Pranadhana, we become intoxicated with the divine. Sutra 2.40. Through simplicity and continual refinement, Saucha, the body, thoughts, and emotions become clear reflections of the self within. Sutra 2.41. Saucha reveals our joyful nature, and the yearning for knowing the self blossoms. Through the practice of Saucha, our flawless essence becomes the basis for the choices and directions we invite into our life. Pure silver is a lucid and shiny metal. Unrefined, it appears ordinary, its luminescence hidden. The process requires the silversmith to boil the unrefined silver over the hottest flame. It is essential for her to fully attend to the molten silver during this tedious process. If the silver remains in the fire for a moment longer than necessary, it could be destroyed. The correct amount of time yields awesome beauty. How does the silversmith know when the silver is fully refined? When can she clearly see her image in it? Saucha recalls the simple and pure energy of youth that fostered healthy development on all levels of our being. The same longing for simplicity, though sometimes hindered, continues throughout our lifetime. Purification by nature. Many cultures have ritualistic bathing practices to encourage the continuation of this lifelong refinement. Early morning immersions in a holy river, often performed while repeating prayers, purify not only the body, but the mind and emotions as well, so the light in the heart can be experienced. Baptism purifies the body, so the blessed spirit within can shine. On a less esoteric level, the enrichment gained by soaking in a natural hot spring, sauna, or steam bath continues to delight many throughout the ages. Women's bodies naturally cycle through their own unique phases: ovulation, menstruation, conception, pregnancy, childbirth, menopause. These dramatic sequences symbolize the highly sophisticated ways our bodies stay vital and healthy. Unable to understand the purpose for these cleansing cycles, male authority figures distorted them, marking women unclean and tainted during certain times of the month. Firm rules were established to keep us from contaminating men or sacred objects. Rituals were devised to purify and sanitize us before we could be accepted into the larger society again. Yet, was that not the job our bodies had just completed? The act of menstruating itself is purification. Driven by natural forces, we are different from men, not tarnished or unclean. All ostracism could have been avoided with the alluring knowledge that the only true purity is in each heart. We were framed by a misconception so great that even today women are thought to be unclean during those special times. Respect woman as my equal in creation, as bearing the image of God. It's from the Bible. Through simplicity and continual refinement, Saucha, the body, thoughts, and emotions become clear reflections of the self within. Saucha reveals our joyful nature and the yearning for knowing the self blossoms. Everything is holy to those with an open heart. Nurses are the angels of mercy in the medical profession. They serve with compassion and take their rewards from knowing they bring comfort and healing to us. Often they have the unpleasant duty of cleaning up bodily discharges. It is their purity of heart that allows them to serve as our greatest and most humbling time of need without judgment or aversion. The illustrious Florence Nightingale formalized the nursing profession. Abandoning her privilege and status, she chose to dedicate her life to the sick and infirm. The essence of compassion, the lady with the lamp, selflessly spent long hours bringing comfort to many. She revolutionized hospital care with simple yet essential improvements, basic procedures we now take for granted, such as keeping the body washed and dressings clean and placing a bell at the bedside, allotted patients dignity in the face of distress. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, many years later, exemplified Florence Nightingale's basic principles. Encountering the destitute and the sick lying in the streets, she cradled them in her arms, impervious to the unsanitary conditions of their bodies, offering them a moment of love and dignity before they died. When difficulties would arise during our healing retreats for those with cancer, Mother Teresa's words returned to inspire me. The miracle is not that we do this work. The miracle is that we love to do this work. Not so obvious simplicity. Cultivating simplicity of mind and emotions can be a refreshing change from the complicated world we live in. When American scientists were making plans to send the first human into weightless space, they encountered many challenges that gravity-bound Earth did not have. Something as routine as keeping a log facilitated the invention of a special writing instrument. In normal usage, ink flows downward from the pen to the paper. This is all done with the persistent force of gravity. Without this force, the ink floats any which way, making writing impossible. Finally, millions of dollars in research and development yielded a pen that could do the job of writing in zero gravity. The ship's logs could now be filled in. The Russians, however, took the simpler route and saved an enormous amount of money. They used a pencil. It is truly a gift to be simple. The blessings come when you can embrace simplicity, making our lives easier and more joyous. Saucha is the purity deep within our own heart that resonates as our guide to knowing. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall know God. New Testament. Another aspect of Saucha is the ability to be emotionally light. We tend to take situations and ourselves much too seriously. Observing the humor in life promotes emotional purity. Divine is the only comedian playing to an audience who has forgotten how to laugh. Voltaire. Through simplicity and continual refinement, Saucha, the body, thoughts, and emotions become clear reflections of the self within. Saucha reveals our joyful nature and the yearning for knowing the self blossoms. Experiencing the power and purity and simplicity, Saucha. Observe how your body changes with the different foods you eat. If the weather is hot and you eat spicy or warming foods, notice if your body perspires more than it does when you consume cool foods and drinks. When watching a scary movie or reading a disturbing book, notice how your thoughts and emotions mimic that mood. It could be an immediate response or it could be a delayed one in a totally different situation. Are there certain clothes? Excuse me. Are there certain clothes or surroundings that allow you to feel a sense of refinement in your being? When you walk on a pristine beach or in a forest, does the simplicity of nature afford the mind and emotions a joyful feeling? Does it seem like all the worries you brought with you surrender to the peaceful surroundings? Write down which foods, clothes, and places allow you to feel that sense of purity, simplicity, and refinement. How do they assist you in feeling that way? The next time you are deciding what to eat, what to wear, or where to visit, recall what feeling you want to invoke and then follow its lead in choosing. When you are involved in a stressful situation, try to look at it from another way, finding a bit of humor that can lighten the mood. Laughter allows the heart to blossom. Sutra 2.42. When at peace and contentment with oneself and others, Santosha, supreme joy is celebrated. Santosha is an agreement of faith that we make with our divine self. This faith fastens us to the peace that abides in our hearts, no matter what that the fates bring. By this affirmation, we firmly identify with our inner essence rather than with external objects. Our identification then travels with gratitude, appreciating how much we have rather than how much we want. With this attitude, all things that come and go do not have the opportunity to override our joy. Instead, they metamorphose into stillness and peace. Keeping your heart light as a feather. In ancient Egypt, after death, the heart was removed from the body to be measured against the weight of the feather. If the heart was found to be heavier than the feather's weight, the person was considered not ready for admission to heaven. The scale, although normally the measure of physical weight, was thought to reveal the degree of emotional heaviness in the heart. The light-hearted were presumably permitted entry through a special ritual, as their physical heart was given a place of honor in the burial plot. Content with the ordinary life, you can show all people the way back to their own true nature. Lao Tzu. When at peace and content with oneself and others, Santosha, supreme joy is celebrated. Joy is accepting what is. Some of us open naturally to joy, while others need to cultivate it more carefully. For most of us, a subtler aspect of Santosha eludes us from time to time. Everlasting joy cleaves us through cultivating the understanding that we hold the power to our happiness. Even if temporarily lost, our joy will soon return, as it is the lifelong reward for attaining wisdom. In South India, there is a heartfelt way of expressing one's appreciation. Instead of saying thank you, they say santosha, or I am content. When at peace and content with oneself and others, santosha, supreme joy is celebrated. Enhancing your joyful nature. Venture to a comfortable place, either physically or in your imagination, where the surroundings evoke a feeling of peace and joy. Spend a few minutes experiencing comfort with the ambiance and notice if you spontaneously begin to smile. Once the smile forms, let it engrave on your face. Close the eyes and journey inward. Notice how the outer smile is greeted by the inner smile of contentment in your heart. The smile is the outward expression of the joy. When you leave the physical place that invoked this feeling, the outward smile remains as a constant reminder of your inner contentment, sharing with each person you meet. Sharing it with each person you meet is like sharing a place in your heart. If at any time the contentment seems to be hiding, coax it out with a sweet upturning of your lips and cheeks and sparkle in your eyes. Sutra 2.43. Living a life with zeal and sincerity, the purifying flame is ignited, tapas, revealing the inner light. Once again, we visit tapas, svadvaya, and ishvara pranadhana, which complemented each other as Kriya Yoga. Sutra 2.1. This time, they are woven into Ashtanga Yoga as the final three niyamas. Their importance is reinforced by the repetition in the sutras. Tapas of body, mind, and speech. The Bhagavad Gita speaks to us of tapas, kindling the purifying flame through refining the actions of our bodies, minds, and speech. Tapas of body is defined as service, physical purity, living in virtue, moderation, and reverence for all. Charging all your actions with zeal and sincerity, whether serving family, the greater community, or yourself, transforms them into spiritual practice. This concept amplifies to the formal practices as well. When practicing asana or posture, pranayama, guidance of universal energy, or any of the other practices, the main benefit comes from embracing the deep spiritual intention. Tapas of mind is distinguished as tranquil, gentle, kind, quiet, willpower, and purity of thought. How we think and feel is a predictor of our physical health and vitality. Our relationships with the world around us are molded by the way we imagine them to be. By keeping our mind tranquil, gentle, and pure, we create a life worthy of spiritual reflection. Tapas of speech is experienced as truthful, pleasant, serene, beneficial prayer and japa, repetition of mantra. Speech is a direct outward expression of the mind and emotions. If we are agitated or upset, our language mimics that point of view. Consciously choosing words that are pleasant and serene, we are able to influence the mind and emotions into calmness. Prayer and mantra are ways of extending the vistas of our speech to reach the place where all understanding resides. This clear threefold description of the tapas from the Bhagavad Gita allows us the liberty to experience varied ways of transforming energy. When the practices are not separate from but incorporated into our lives, the unfolding of our hearts continue. The Bhagavad Gita assures us that it is not necessary to engage in rigorous practices. These steady and subtle ways slowly ignite the spark of divinity within our hearts. While there are varied forms of sacrifice one can make with zeal and sincerity, simple acts of devotion, whether private or public, have powerful and lasting effects. Living life with zeal and sincerity, the purifying flame is ignited, tapas, revealing the inner light. An exquisite test of faith. The brilliant poet, Maya Angelou, talks with passion and tenderness, one of her fiercest tests, and how she ascended to a high level of understanding through sacred prayer. The story beautifully illustrates the perfect blending of tapas, svadvaya, and Ishvara pranadhana. An alarming phone call revealed that her precious son was hospitalized and not expected to live. "Could you come quickly?" the frightened voice asked. She could hardly have arrived more quickly if she had the power to materialize at will. The doctors were confident that her son would live only a short time longer. Hearing that proclamation, she enjoined everyone concerned to convey only positive thoughts when entering her son's hospital room. Summoning all her faith and strength, she began a prayer vigil that she vowed would continue until her son had made a total recovery. She would consider no other outcome. Her heart and soul entwined in chorus. "God, I am thanking you in advance for the full recovery of my son." Her prayer was clear and simple, leaving not even a hair's breadth for doubt or confusion. Moving from the seed in her heart, the prayer flooded her mind, giving it voice. "God, I am thanking you in advance for the full recovery of my son." Over and over she prayed in a heart-wrenching refrain that summoned compassion from all the angels. "God, I am thanking you in advance for the full recovery of my son." All through the night, aware of nothing else, her powerful voice echoed through the room and up to the heavens. Drawn by her sincerity and passion, many joined her in chorus. "God, I am thanking you in advance for the full recovery of my son." As others tired and left, she continued until she knew that the prayers were being heard. "God, I am thanking you in advance for the full recovery of my son." At times her voice started to waver, but never her heart. Not until her son returned from the coma to a semi-waking state did she even begin to slow down her vigil. After the full recovery of her son, she was asked if she ever doubted that her prayers would be answered. If doubt even started to peek its head up, I'd bellow even louder. The good Lord might have been busy, and I wanted to make sure he could hear me, and I kept the prayer going for weeks after. I was not satisfied until my son fully recovered. "I have an inward treasure born within me, which can keep me alive if all the extraneous delights should be withheld or offered only at a price I cannot afford." Charlotte Bronte. Living life with zeal and sincerity, the purifying flame is ignited, tapas, revealing the inner light. Experiencing living life with your zeal and sincerity. Choose the tapas of speech from the Bhagavad Gita as the focus of your practice. Notice how your voice resonates and observe the choice of words you use. For a revealing look at this, take a small recording device and place it under a table or out of sight the next time you visit with a friend. Turn it on at the onset of your conversation. Soon you will forget it's there. After your friend leaves, listen to your words and expressions. Was your speech tranquil and gentle? Did it bring benefit to yourself and your friend? How was the tone of your voice? Did you feel soothed or agitated listening to yourself? Was it enlightening to listen to yourself speaking, if perhaps a bit intimidating? Incorporate the positive changes you would like to introduce into your speech for a week and repeat the process. Continue refining, and after some time, you will find that outer speech reflects not only the mind and emotions, but your heart as well. Sutra 2.44 Sacred study of the divine through scripture, nature, and introspection, Svadvaya, guides us to the supreme self. Svadvaya guides us to know ourselves through outward observation and inner reflection. Often we experience an incomprehensible phenomenon, either in nature or within our minds and hearts. If we are unable to understand it intuitively, we seek external sources. If, for example, we seek understanding of the movements of the tides or the cycles of the moon, we may consult an astronomer and conduct a thorough investigation of how gravity works. However, if seeking spiritual understanding, finding an outside source becomes a more delicate matter, it may take days, weeks, or longer to find a holy book or a teacher to assuage doubts or endorse experiences. Why is it we are able to learn so much from some people and have great difficulty learning from others? Is it their ability to quote great teachings or the grace they exude that transports us into the depth of understanding? Or perhaps something deeper still? One such great teacher, a revered and noble rabbi, had breathed his last breath, leaving the congregation in soulful mourning. An outsider became curious about this esteemed rabbi who drew such veneration on his death. He began interviewing a few of the close disciples who were blessed to study with the rabbi. The refrains were varied and vague. I cannot exactly say how he inspired me. We learned the teachings through his discourses, but more was transmitted by the way he lived his life. He was a very humble man, one disciple, sitting off by himself, his eyes brimming with tears, whispered softly, I used to love to watch the way, with great reverence, he took off his shoes. Study brings us wisdom. Wisdom brings us life. Rabbi Hillel. We tend to revere book learning in these times, overstuffing our minds with all kinds of information. If you read one issue of the Sunday New York Times cover to cover, you have exposed yourself to more information than the average person 100 years ago read during his or her lifetime. Fact today, fiction tomorrow. We often forget that observing natural occurrences had made many important discoveries. Alexander Fleming's curiosity led him to study a simple mold, offensive to most of us, making the intuitive leap that these organisms could miraculously cure infection. Commonly known as penicillin, the minute spores became the panacea that saved millions of lives. Many theories may be correct and accurate today, but tomorrow, with these new discoveries and advancements, those truths of yesterday may be discounted. What happens to our belief in the first theory? Is it shaken? The mind wants to switch to the new hypothesis, but how quickly are we able to change? Several hundred years ago, a few noble scientists, including Giordano Bruno, proclaimed that the Earth was not the center of the planetary system, let alone the universe. The repercussions were uproarious, and the theory was considered blasphemous. It was a well-known fact that at the time that the sun, as well as the other planets, orbited around the Earth. The outraged church declared this discovery to be heresy. Bruno, a prominent astronomer, a seer, and a speaker of truth, was burned at the stake. Later, Galileo Later, Galileo corroborated Bruno's theory and was sentenced to house arrest for the remainder of his life. Today, the knowledge that the Earth revolves around the sun is a straightforward observation. We even call it the solar system, a statement of fact, but at the time, the opposite was considered truth. We all agree that the Earth revolves around the sun, yet we continue to use archaic language. What words do you use to describe what you observe at dawn and dusk? What do you say? Do you say the sun rises in the morning and sets in the evening? Most people do. Yet, we just clearly established that the sun does not revolve around us, so how does it rise and set? Even with correct knowledge, we are slow to change our consciousness and our metaphors. Always be willing for your concept of reality to change as your consciousness brightens. Sacred study of the divine through scripture, nature, and introspection, Svadvaya, gives us to the Supreme Self. Experiencing the rotation of the earth and changing your concept of sunrise and sunset. Sit or stand comfortably with a clear view of the sky at pre-dawn or pre-dusk. Observe the sun and notice how your mind travels to the customary yet erroneous relationship between the sun and the earth. While your deep thoughts hold the truth, the habitual mind holds the notion that the sun rises and sets, while you, planted on the earth, remain stationary. Become very quiet and begin to imagine that you and the earth are actually moving either toward the sun, dawn, or away from the sun, dusk. Notice how your mind will try to resist this phenomenon. After a time, you may be able to feel the steady, slow motion. You may even get a bit dizzy. It may take a while, but as you repeat this observation, the flow will seem more natural. Then the challenge will be to come up with other terminology for the Earth's movements, letting go of the terms sunrise and sunset. Use the same principles with other concepts that you may believe to be so. Look to a learned source for affirmation and challenge yourself to change. Sutra 2.45. Through wholehearted dedication, Ishvara Pranadhana, we become intoxicated with the divine. For the third time in the sacred sutras, Ishvara Pranadhana is encouraging us to live with wholehearted devotion to the divine and divine creation. As ahimsa is the pinnacle from which all of the yamas flow, Ishvara Pranadhana is the zenith of the niyamas. Devotion is the key to unlocking our hearts. When living with an open heart, we see clearly as the pathways of our lives unfold. Faith allows us to trust in the present moment as we observe our part in the divine plan. Love and devotion can be expressed as a simple blessing we bestow on ourselves or others, such as saying, "Bless you," when someone sneezes. Often prayers invoke a higher source for something as mundane as losing our keys. Please, Divine Mother, help me find my keys. Many ways to pray to the One. Prayers come in many forms as there are hearts to recite them. Here are a few of the more traditional ways prayer is summoned. Petition. appeals to the divine to fulfill our needs or wishes. Divine Mother, please help me get this job. Intercession, please made on behalf of another. Divine Mother, please let my daughter get into college. Thanksgiving, expressions of deep gratitude. Thank you, Divine Mother, for allowing our home to be saved from the fire. Praise, glorification of the divine and creation. Blessed be you who made this beautiful day. Blessings, invoking the divine grace to bless, protect, and guide us and others. Divine Mother, please bless and protect our family through this time of great trial. Affirmation, heartfelt expression to the uncertainty of our faith in the divine plan of the universe. Divine Mother, I do not understand why this great sorrow is upon us. Please give me the faith and strength to withstand it and keep my trust in you strong. More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of. Alfred Lord Tennyson. Through wholehearted dedication, Ishvara Pranadhana, we become intoxicated with the divine. Prayers can be directed to the divine within or to an outward presence. Much of the time, we go back and forth according to the moment and mood. Most of us summon the greatest power of prayer in difficult times. When all other avenues have been exhausted and the enormity of the situation becomes too great to bear alone, we then pray to someone else out there as a separate person or manifestation to help us cope. We are really just summoning all the positive energy and celestial beings that are standing by to make our lives easier in all ways. Extending and reaching our arms toward the sky, we surrender in prayer. It is preferable to cultivate faith and devotion before we are in desperate need. Wholehearted devotion connects us through faith to our source. Learning to trust the power within, we courageously let go and live each moment to the fullest. That, after all, is how life is doled out to us one moment at a time. We then become intoxicated with the divine. Come to the edge, he said. They said, we are afraid. Come to the edge, he said. They came. He pushed them and they flew. Gyame Apollinaire. Through wholehearted dedication, Ishvara Pranadhana, we become intoxicated with the divine. Experiencing the power of wholehearted dedication, wholehearted dedicated Ishvara Pranadhana prayer. Notice the times when you feel the desire to pray. Is it at times of joy or times of unhappiness? If your prayers are always petitions, try reforming them to express gratitude. If you use praise, feeling you will receive something in return, affirm that blessings are abundant. Begin to formulate an affirmation or prayer in your own words that allows you to expand into the next level of joy. Repeat this prayer or affirmation at first in formal times in the morning and evening. Then begin to repeat it as many times during the day as possible, encouraging the repetition in both your mind and heart. To help you remember this gem during the day, place a colored dot on your watch or a note on the computer, the telephone, the car ignition, or any place you frequent. Let it be a constant reminder as you glance at it to remember and repeat the affirmation or prayer. In a week's time, change the wording to reflect yet another layer of your divinity. Continue to grow and blossom as the joy comes forth. Thank you for reading with us today from The Secret Power of Yoga by Nischala Joy Devi. This week we are reading Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, and we are on chapter 14, the body. All right, chapter 14, the body. I listen with love to my body's messages. I believe we create every so-called illness in our body. The body, like everything else in life, is a mirror of our inner thoughts and beliefs. The body is always talking to us if we will only take the time to listen. Every cell within your body responds to every single thought you think and every word you speak. Continuous modes of thinking and speaking produce body behaviors and postures and eases or diseases. The person who has a permanently scowling face did not produce that by having joyous, loving thoughts. Older people's faces and bodies show so clearly a lifetime of thinking patterns. How will you look when you are elderly? I'm including in this section my list of probable mental patterns that create illness in the body, as well as the new thought patterns or affirmations to be used to create health. They appear in my book, Heal Your Body. In addition to those short listings, I will explore a few of the more common conditions to give you an idea of just how we create these problems. Not every mental equivalent is 100% true for everyone. However, it does give us a point of reference to begin our search for the cause of the disease. Many people working in the alternative healing therapies use Heal Your Body all the time with their clients and find that the mental causes run 90 to 95% true. The head represents us. It is what we show the world. It is how we are usually recognized. When something is wrong in the head area, it usually means we feel something is very wrong with us. The hair represents strength. When we are tense and afraid, we often create those bands of steel that originate in the shoulder muscles and come up over the top of the head and sometimes even down around the eyes. The hair shaft goes up through the hair follicle. When there is a lot of tension in the scalp, the hair shaft can be squeezed so tightly that the hair can no longer breathe and it dies and falls out. If this tension is continued and the scalp is not relaxed, then the follicle remains so tight that the new hair cannot grow through. The result is baldness. Female baldness has been on the increase ever since women have begun entering the business world with all its tensions and frustrations. We are not aware of baldness in women because women's wigs are so natural and attractive. Unfortunately, most men's toupees are still discernible at quite a distance. Try it now. Tell your scalp to relax and feel if there is a difference. If you notice that your scalp visibly relaxes, then I would suggest you do this little exercise often. The ears represent the capacity to hear. When there are problems with the ears, it usually means something is going on you do not want to hear. An earache would indicate that there's anger about what is heard. Earaches are common with children. They often have to listen to stuff going on in the household they really don't want to hear. Household rules often forbid a child's expression of anger, and the child's inability to change things creates an earache. Deafness represents long-standing refusal to listen to someone. Notice that when one partner has a hearing impairment, the other partner often talks and talks and talks. The eyes represent the capacity to see. When there are problems with the eyes, it usually means there is something we do not want to see, either about ourselves or about life, past, present, or future. Whenever I see small children wearing glasses, I know there is stuff going on in their household that they do not want to look at. If they can't change the experience, they will diffuse the sight so they don't have to see it so clearly. Many people have had dramatic healing experiences when they have been willing to go back into the past and clean up what it was they did not want to look at a year or two before they began wearing glasses. Are you negating what's happening right now? What don't you want to see? What don't you want to face? Are you afraid to see the present or the future? If you could see clearly, what would you see that you don't see now? Can you see what you are doing to yourself? Interesting questions to look at. Headaches come from invading the self. The next time you get a headache, stop and ask yourself where and how you have just made yourself wrong. Forgive yourself, let it go, and the headache will dissolve back into the nothingness from where it came. Migraine headaches are created by people who want to be perfect and who create a lot of pressure on themselves. A lot of suppressed anger is involved. Interestingly, migraine headaches can almost always be alleviated by masturbation if you do it as soon as you feel a migraine coming on. The sexual release dissolves the tension and the pain. You may not feel like masturbating then, but it certainly is worth a try. You can't lose. Sinus problems felt right in the face and so close to the nose represent being irritated by someone in your life, someone who is close to you. You might even feel they are bearing down on you. We forget that we create situations, then we give our power away by blaming the other person for our frustration. No person, no place, and no thing has any power over us, for we are the only thinkers in our mind. We create our experiences, our reality, and everyone in it. When we create peace and harmony and balance in our mind, we will find it in ourselves and in our lives. The neck and throat are fascinating because so much stuff goes on there. The neck represents the ability to be flexible in our thinking, to see the other side of a question, and to see another person's viewpoint. When there are problems with the neck, it usually means we are being stubborn about our own concept of a situation. Whenever I see a person wearing one of those collars, I know this person is being very self-righteous and stubborn about not seeing the other side of an issue. Virginia Satir, the brilliant family therapist, said she did some silly research and found that there are more than 250 different ways to wash dishes, depending upon who is washing and the ingredients used. If we are stuck in believing there is only one way or one viewpoint, then we are shutting out most of life. The throat represents our ability to speak up for ourselves, to ask for what we want, to say, I am, etc. When we have throat problems, it usually means we do not feel we have the right to do those things. We feel inadequate to stand up for ourselves. Sore throats are always anger. If a cold is involved, then there is mental confusion too. Laryngitis usually means you are so angry you cannot speak. The throat also represents the creative flow in the body. This is where we express our creativity. And when our creativity is stifled and frustrated, we often have throat problems. We all know many people who live their whole lives for others. They never once get to do what they want to do. They're always pleasing others, fathers, spouses, lovers, bosses. Tonsillitis and thyroid problems are just frustrated creativity resulting from not being able to do what you want to do. The energy center in the throat, the fifth chakra, is the place in the body where change takes place. When we are resisting change or in the middle of change or trying to change, we often have a lot of activity in our throats. Notice when you cough or when someone else coughs, what has just been said? What are we reacting to? Is it resistance and stubbornness, or is it the process of change taking place? In a workshop, I use coughs as a tool for self-discovery. Every time someone coughs, I have the permission to touch the throat and say out loud, I am willing to change, or I am changing. The arms represent our ability to and capacity to embrace the experiences of life. The upper arms have to do with the capacity, and the lower arms have to do with our abilities. We store old emotions in our joints, and the elbows represent our flexibility in changing directions. Are you flexible about a changing direction in your life? Or are old emotions keeping you stuck in one spot? The hands grasp, hold hands hold, hands clench. We let things slip through our fingers. Sometimes we hold on too long. We are handy, tight-fisted, open-handed, penny pinchers, butterfingers. We give handouts. We can handle ourselves, or we can't seem to handle anything. We put a handle on something. It's hands down, it's hands off, hanky pinky. We give someone a hand, or hand in hand, it's on hand or out of hand, underhanded or overhanded. We have helping hands. Hands can be gentle or they can be hard, with knotty knuckles from overthinking or gnarled with arthritic criticism. Grasping hands come from fear. Fear of loss, fear of never having enough, fear that it won't stay if you hold tightly. Tightly grasping a relationship only has the partner run away in desperation. Tightly clenched hands cannot take in anything new. Shaking the hands freely from the wrists gives a feeling of looseness and openness. That which belongs to you cannot be taken from you, so relax. The fingers each have meaning. Problems in the fingers show where you need to relax and let go. If you cut your index fingers, there's probably anger and fear that has to do with your ego. In some current situation, the thumb is mental and represents worry. The index finger is the ego and fear. The middle finger has to do with sex and anger. When you are angry, hold your middle finger and watch the anger dissolve. Hold the right finger if your anger is at a man, and the left if it is at a woman. The ring finger is both unions and grief. The little finger has to do with the family and pretending. The back represents our support system. Problems with the back usually mean we feel we are not being supported. Too often, we think we are only supported by our job or by our family or spouses. In reality, we are totally supported by the universe, by life itself. The upper back has to do with feeling the lack of emotional support. My husband, wife, lover, friend, boss doesn't understand me or support me. The middle back has to do with guilt. All that stuff is in the back of us. Are you afraid to see what's back there? Or are you hiding what is back there? Do you feel stabbed in the back? Do you feel real burnt out? Are your finances a mess, or do you worry about them excessively? Then your lower back may be bothering you. The lack of money or the fear of money will do it. The amount you have has nothing to do with it. So many of us feel that money is the most important thing in our lives and that we could not live without it. This is not true. There is something far more important and precious to us without which we could not live. What is that? It is our breath. Our breath is the most precious substance in our lives, and yet we totally take for granted when we exhale that our next breath will be there. If we did not take another breath, we would not last 3 minutes. Now, if the power that created us has given us enough breath to last for as long as we shall live, can we not trust that everything else we need will be supplied? The lungs represent our capacity to take in and give out life. Problems with the lungs usually mean we are afraid to take in life, or perhaps we feel we do not have the right to live life fully. Women have traditionally been very shallow breathers and have often thought of themselves as second-class citizens who did not have the right to take up space and sometimes not even the right to live. Today, this is all changing. Women are taking their place as full members of society and breathing deeply and fully. It pleases me to see women in sports. Women have always worked in the fields, but this is the first time in history, as far as I know, that women have gone into sports. It is wonderful to see the magnificent bodies that are emerging. Emphysema and heavy smoking are ways of denying life. They mask a deep feeling of being totally unworthy of existing. Scolding will not change the habit of smoking. It is the basic belief that must change first. The breasts represent the mothering principle. When there are problems with the breasts, it usually means we are over mothering either a person, a place, a thing, or an experience. Part of the mothering process is to allow the child to grow up. We need to know when to take our hands off, when to turn over the reins and let them be. Being overproductive does not prepare the other person to handle his or her own experience. Sometimes our overbearing attitudes literally cut off nourishment in a situation. If cancer is involved, then there is also deep resentment. Release the fear and know the intelligence of the universe resides in each one of us. The heart, of course, represents love, while our blood represents joy. Our hearts lovingly pump joy throughout our bodies. When we deny ourselves joy and love, the heart shrivels and becomes cold. As a result, the blood gets sluggish and we creep our way to anemia, angina, and heart attacks. The heart does not attack us. We get so caught up in the soap opera and dramas we create that we often forget to notice the little joys that surround us. We spend years squeezing all the joy out of the heart, and it literally falls over in pain. Heart attack people are never joyous people. If they do not take the time to appreciate the joys of life, they will just recreate another heart attack in time. Heart of gold, cold heart, open heart, black heart, loving heart, warm-hearted. Where is your heart? The stomach digests all new ideas and experiences we have. What or who can't you stomach? What gets you in the gut? When there are stomach problems, it usually means we don't know how to assimilate the new experience. We are afraid. Many of us remember when commercial airplanes first became popular that we could get inside a big metal tube that would carry us safely through the sky was a new idea we found hard to assimilate. At every seat, there were throw-up bags, and most of us were using them. We would throw up into our barf bags as discreetly as we could, wrap them up, and hand them to the stewardess, who spent a lot of her time running up and down the aisles, collecting them. Now, it is many years later, and though the bags are still at every seat, they are seldom used. We have assimilated the idea of flying. Ulcers are no more than fear. Tremendous fear of not being good enough. We fear not being good enough for a parent. We fear not being good enough for a boss. We can't stomach who we are. We rip our guts apart trying to please others, no matter how important our job is. Our inner self-esteem is very low. We are afraid they will find out about us. The genitals represent the most feminine part of a woman, her femininity, or the most masculine part of a man, his masculinity, or masculine principle, or our feminine principle. When we do not feel comfortable with being either a man or a woman, when we reflect our sexuality, when we reject our bodies as dirty or sinful, then we often have problems in the genital area. I seldom come across a person who was reared in a household where the genitals and their functions were called by their right names. We all grew up with euphemisms of one sort or another. Remember the ones your own family used? It could have been as mild as down there to names that made you feel your genitals were dirty or disgusting. Yes, we all grew up believing that something was not quite right between our legs. I feel the sexual revolution that exploded several years ago was in one way a good thing. We were moving away from Victorian hypocrisy. Suddenly, it was okay to have many partners, and women as well as men could have one-night stands. Marital swapping became more open. Many of us began to enjoy the pleasure and freedom of our bodies in a new and open way. However, few of us thought to deal with what Rosa Lamont, founder of the Self-Communication Institute, calls Mama's God. Whatever your mother taught you about God when you were 3 years old is still there in your subconscious mind unless you have done some conscious work to release it. Was that God an angry, avenging God? What did that God feel about sex? If we are still carrying those early guilt feelings about our sexuality and our bodies, then we are surely going to create punishment for ourselves. Bladder problems, anal problems, vaginitis, prostate, and penis problems all come under the same area. They stem from a distorted belief about our bodies and the correctness of their functions. Every organ in our body is a magnificent expression of life with its own special functions. We do not think of our livers or our eyes as dirty or sinful. Why do we choose to believe our genitals are? The anus is as beautiful as the ear. Without our anus, we would have no way to release what the body no longer needs, and we would die very quickly. Every part of our body and every function of our body is perfect and normal, natural and beautiful. I ask clients with sexual problems to begin to relate to their rectum, penis, or vagina with a sense of love and appreciation for their function and their beauty. If you are beginning to cringe or get irate as you read this, ask yourself why. Who told you to deny any part of your body? Certainly not God. Our sexual organs were created as the most pleasurable part of our body to give us pleasure. To deny this is to create pain and punishment. Sex is not only okay, it is glorious and wonderful. It is normal for us to have sex as it is for us to breathe or eat. Just for a moment, try to visualize the vastness of the universe. It is beyond our comprehension. Even our top scientists with their latest equipment cannot measure its size. Within this universe, there are many galaxies. In one of these smaller galaxies, in a far-off corner, there is a minor sun. Around the sun, a few pinpoints revolve, one of which is called planet Earth. I find it hard to believe that the vast, incredible intelligence that created this entire universe is only an old man sitting on a cloud above the planet Earth watching my genitals. Yet so many of us were taught this concept as a child. It is vital that we release foolish, outmoded ideas that do not support us and nourish us. I feel strongly that even our concept of God needs to be one that is for us, not against us. There are so many different religions to choose from. If you have one now that tells you that you are a sinner and a lowly worm, get another one. I'm not advocating that everybody run around having free sex at all times. I'm saying that some of our rules do not make sense, and this is why many people break them and become hypocrites. When we remove sexual guilt from people and teach them to love and respect themselves, then they will automatically treat themselves and others in ways that are for their highest good and greatest joy. The reason we have so many problems with our sexuality now is because so many of us have self-hatred and self-disgust, and we treat ourselves and others badly. It's not enough to teach children in school the mechanics of sexuality. We need, on a very deep level, to allow children to remember that their bodies, genitals, and sexuality are something to rejoice about. I truly believe that people who love themselves and their bodies will not abuse themselves or others. I find that most bladder problems come from being pissed off, usually at a partner. Something makes us angry that has to do with our femininity or our masculinity. Women have more bladder problems than men because they are more prone to hide their hurt. Vaginitis, again, usually involves feeling romantically hurt by a partner. Men's prostate problems have a lot to do with self-worth and also believing that as he gets older, he becomes less of a man. Impotence adds fear and is sometimes even related to spite against a previous mate. Frigidity comes from fear or a belief that it is wrong to enjoy the body. It also comes from self-disgust, and it can be intensified by an insensitive partner. PMS, premenstrual syndrome, which has reached epidemic proportions, is concurrent with the increase of media advertising. These ads continually hammer home the concept that the female body must be sprayed and powdered and douched and over-cleansed in numerous ways to make it even bearably acceptable. At the same time that women are coming into their own as equal beings, they are also being bombarded negatively with the idea that feminine process are not quite acceptable. This notion, combined with the tremendous amounts of sugar being consumed today, creates a fertile breeding ground for PMS. The feminine processes, all of them, including menstruation and menopause, are normal, natural processes. We must accept them as that. Our bodies are beautiful, magnificent, and wondrous. It is my belief that venereal disease is almost always sexual guilt. It comes from a feeling, often subconscious, that is not right to express ourselves sexually. A carrier with a venereal disease can have many partners, but only those whose mental and physical immune systems are weak will be susceptible to it. In addition to the old standards in recent years, the heterosexual population has created an increase of herpes. This is a disease that comes back again and again to punish us for our belief that we are bad. Herpes has a tendency to flare up when we are emotionally upset. That tells us a lot right there. Go ahead and eat breakfast. I'll take you to school. Hey,
Hey, good morning.
good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Gabriel just got up. He missed the bus. I've been
Cool.
almost, well, this chapter is really long, like really long. I figured I'd be done by now, like 15 minutes ago, but I'm not. So
Okay.
it's taking a little bit. So I'll be there after I drop Gabriel off and stuff.
Okay.
Hey,
Love you.
love you. See you soon. Bye. Where was I? Now let's take the same theory over to the gay community where they have all the same problems everybody else has, plus much of society pointing their fingers at them and saying, bad. Usually their own mothers and fathers are also saying, you're bad. This is a heavy load to carry, and it is difficult to love yourself under these circumstances. It is not surprising that gay men were amongst the first to experience the dread disease, AIDS. In heterosexual society, many women dread growing old because of the belief systems we have created around the glory of youth. It is not so difficult for the men, for they become distinguished with a bit of gray hair. The older man often gets respect, and people may even look up to him. Not so for most gay men, for they have created a culture that places tremendous emphasis on youth and beauty. While everyone is young to start with, only a few fit the standard of beauty. So much emphasis has been placed on the physical appearance of the body that the feelings inside have not totally have been totally disregarded. If you are not young and beautiful, it is almost as though you don't count. The person does not count, only the body counts. This way of thinking is a disgrace to the whole culture. It's another way of saying gay is not good enough. Because of the ways gay people often treat other gays, for many gay men, the experience of getting old is something to dread. It is almost better to die than to get old. And AIDS is a disease that often kills. Too often, gay men feel that when they get older, they will be useless and unwanted. It is almost better to destroy themselves first, and many have created a destructive lifestyle. Some of the concepts and attitudes that are part of the gay lifestyle, the meat rack, the constant judging, the refusal to get close to another, and so on, are monstrous, and AIDS is a monstrous disease. These sort of attitudes and behavior patterns can only create guilt on a very deep level, no matter how much we may camp. Camping, which can be such fun, can also be extremely destructive, both to givers and recipients. It is another way of avoiding closeness and intimacy. In no way am I trying to create guilt for anyone. However, we need to look at the things that need to be changed in order for all of our lives to function with love and joy and respect. 50 years ago, almost all gay men were closeted, and now they have been able to create pockets in society where they can at least be relatively open. I feel it is less fortunate that much of what they have created gives so much pain to their gay brothers. While it is often deplorable the way straights treat gays, it is tragic the way many gays treat other gays. Men traditionally have always been more sexual partners than women, and when men get together, of course, there will be a great deal more sex. That's all fine and good. The bathhouses fulfill a wonderful need, unless we are using our sexuality for the wrong reasons. Some men like having lots of partners to satisfy their deep need for self-esteem rather than for the joy of it. I do not believe there is anything wrong with having several partners, and the use of alcohol and some recreational drugs on an occasional basis is fine. However, if we are getting bombed out of our heads every night, and if we need several partners a day just to prove our self-worth, then we are not coming from a nourishing space. We need to make some mental changes. This is a time for healing, for making whole, not for condemnation. We must rise out of the limitations of the past. We are all divine, magnificent expressions of life. Let's claim that now. The colon represents our ability to let go, to release that which we no longer need. The body, being in the perfect rhythm and flow of life, needs a balance of intake, assimilation, and elimination. It is only our fear that block the releasing of the old. Even if constipated people are not actually stingy, they usually do not trust that there will ever be enough. They hold on to relationships that give them pain. They are afraid to throw out clothes that have been in the closet for years because they might need them someday. They stay in stifling jobs or never give themselves pleasure because they must save that for a rainy day. We do not rummage in last night's garbage to find today's meal. Learn to trust the process of life to always bring what you need. Our legs carry us forward in life. Leg problems often indicate a fear of moving forward or a reluctance to move forward in a certain direction. We run with our legs. We drag our legs. We pussyfoot. We are knock-kneed, pigeon-toed, and have big, fat, angry thighs filled with childhood resentments. Not wanting to do things will often produce minor leg problems. Varicose veins represent standing in a job or place that we hate. The veins lose their ability to carry joy. Are you going in the direction you want to? Knees, like the neck, have to do with flexibility. Only they express bending and pride, ego, and stubbornness. Often, when moving forward, we are fearful of bending and we become inflexible. This stiffens the joints. We want to move forward, but we do not want to change our ways. This is why knees take so long to heal. Our ego is involved. The knees take a long time because we get our pride and our self-righteousness involved. The next time you have a knee problem, ask yourself where you are being self-righteous, where you are refusing to bend. Drop the stubbornness and let go. Life is flow. Life is movement. And to be comfortable, we must be flexible and move with it. A willow tree bends and sways and flows with the wind and is always graceful and at ease with life. Our feet have to do with our understanding of ourselves and of life, past, present, and future. Many old people have difficult time walking. Their understanding has been warped, and they often feel there is no place to go. Little children move on happy dancing feet. Elderly people often shuffle as if they are reluctant to move. Our skin represents our individuality. Skin problems usually mean we feel our individuality is being threatened somehow. We feel that others have power over us. We are thin-skinned. Things tend to get under our skin. We feel skinned alive. Our nerves are right under our skin. One of the quickest ways to heal skin problems is to nurture yourself by saying in your mind, I approve of myself. Several hundred times a day, take back your own power. Accidents are no accident. Like everything else in our lives, we create them. It's not that we necessarily say, I want to have an accident, but we do have the mental thought patterns that can attract an accident to us. Some people seem to be accident prone, and others go for a lifetime without ever getting a scratch. Accidents are expressions of anger. They indicate built up frustrations resulting from not feeling the freedom to speak up for oneself. Accidents also indicate rebellion against authority. We get so mad we want to hit people. And instead, we get hit. When we are angry at ourselves, when we feel guilty, when we feel the need for punishment, an accident is a marvelous way of taking care of that. It seems as though any accident is not our fault, that we are helpless victims in a quirk of fate. An accident allows us to turn to others for sympathy and attention. We get our wounds bathed and attended to. We often get bed rest, sometimes for an extended period of time, and we get pain. Where this pain occurs in the body gives us a clue to which area of life we feel guilty about. The degree of physical damage lets us know how severely we felt we needed to be punished and for how long the sentence should be. Anorexia bulimia is denying the self life an extreme form of self-hatred. Food is nourishment on the most basic level. Why would you deny yourself nourishment? Why do you want to die? What is going on in your life that is so awful that you want to get out completely? Self-hatred is only hating a thought you have about yourself. Thoughts can be changed. What is so terrible about you? Were you reared in a critical family? Did you have critical teachers? Did your early religious training tell you that you were not good enough as you are? So often we try to find reasons that make sense to us for why we are not loved and accepted just as we are. Because of the fashion industry's obsession with slenderness, many women who have as their main messages, I am not good enough, what's the use, will use their bodies as a focal point for self-hatred. On one level, they are saying, if I were only thin enough, then they would love me, but it doesn't work. Nothing works from the outside. Self-approval and self-acceptance are the key. Arthritis is a disease that comes from a constant pattern of criticism. First of all, criticism of the self, and then criticism of other people. Arthritic people often attract a lot of criticism because it is their pattern to criticize. They are cursed with perfectionism, the need to be perfect at all times in every situation. Do you know of anyone on this planet who is perfect? I do not. Why do we set standards that say we have to be super person in order to be barely acceptable? It's such a strong expression of not being good enough and such a heavy burden to carry. Asthma we call smother love. There is a feeling that you do not have the right to breathe for yourself. Asthmatic children often have overdeveloped consciousness. They take on guilt feelings for whatever seems wrong in their environment. They feel unworthy, therefore guilty, and in need of self-punishment. Geographic cures sometimes work with asthma, especially if the family does not go along. Usually, asthmatic children will outgrow their disease. This really means they go away to school, get married, or leave home somehow, and the disease dissolves. Oftentimes, later in life, an experience will happen that pushes an old button within them, and they have another attack. When that happens, they are not really responding to the current circumstances, but rather to what used to go on in their childhood. Boils and burns, cuts, fevers, sores, itis, and inflammations. All the indications of anger expressing in the body. Anger will find its way to express, no matter how much we try to suppress it. Steam that has built up must be released. We fear our anger, lest we destroy our world. Yet anger can be released as simply as saying, I am angry about this. True, we can't always say this to our bosses. We can, however, beat the bed or scream in the car or play tennis. These are harmless ways to physically releasing anger. Spiritual people often believe they shouldn't get angry. True, we are all working toward the time when we no longer blame others for our feelings. But until we arrive there, it is healthier to acknowledge what we do feel in the moment. Cancer is a disease caused by deep resentment held for a long time until it literally eats away at the body. Something happens in childhood that destroys the sense of trust. This experience is never forgotten, and the individual lives with a sense of self-pity, finding it hard to develop and maintain long-term, meaningful relationships. Because of that belief system, life seems to be a series of disappointments, a feeling of hopelessness, and a helplessness and loss permeates the thinking. And it becomes easy to blame others for all our problems. People with cancer are also very self-crucial. To me, learning to love and accept the self is the key to healing cancers. Overweight represents need for protection. We seek protection from hurts, slights, criticism, abuse, sexuality, and sexual advances, from a fear of life in general, and also specifically, take your choice. I am not a heavy person, yet I have learned over the years that when I am feeling insecure and not at ease, I will put on a few pounds. When the threat is gone, the excess weight goes away by itself. Fighting fat is a waste of time and energy. Diets don't work. The minute you stop, the weight goes back up. Loving and approving of yourself, trusting in the process of life, and feeling safe because you know the power of your own mind make up the best diet I know of. Go on a diet from negative thoughts, and your weight will take care of itself. Too many parents stuff food in a baby's mouth, no matter what the problem is. These babies grow up to stand in front of an open refrigerator saying, "I don't know what I want," whenever there is a problem. Pain of any sort, to me, is an indication of guilt. Guilt always seeks punishment, and punishment creates pain. Chronic pain comes from chronic guilt, so often so deeply buried that we are not even aware of it anymore. Guilt is a totally useless emotion. It never makes anyone feel better, nor does it change a situation. Your sentence is now over, so let yourself out of prison. Forgiving is only giving up, letting go. Strokes are blood clots, congestion in the bloodstream in the area of the brain, cutting off the blood supply to the brain. The brain is the computer of the body. Blood is joy. The veins and arteries are channels of joy. Everything works under the law and the action of love. There is love in every bit of intelligence in the universe. It is impossible to work and function well without love and joy being experienced. Negative thinking clogs up the brain, and there is no room for love and joy to flow in its free and open way. Laughter cannot flow if it is not allowed to be free and foolish. It is the same with love and joy. Life is not grim unless we make it so, unless we choose to look at it in that way. We can find total disaster in the smallest upset, and we can find some joy in the greatest tragedy. It is up to us. Sometimes we try to force our life to go in a certain way when it is not for our highest good. Sometimes we create strokes to force us to go in a totally different direction, to reevaluate our lifestyles. Stiffness in the body represents stiffness in the mind. Fear makes us cling to old ways, and we find it difficult to be flexible. If we believe there's only one way to do something, we often find ourselves becoming stiff. We can always find another way to do things. Remember Virginia Satir and her more than 250 different ways to do dishes? Notice where in the body the stiffness occurs. Look it up on my list of mental patterns, and it will show you where in your mind you are being stiff and rigid. Surgery has its place. It is good for broken bones and accidents, and for conditions beyond the abilities of a beginner to dissolve. It may be easier under these conditions to have the operation and concentrate all the mental healing work on seeing that the condition is not recreated. More and more each day, there are many wonderful people in the medical profession who are truly dedicated to helping humanity. More and more doctors are turning to holistic ways of healing, treating the whole person. Yet most doctors do not work with the cause of any illness. They only treat the symptoms, the effects. They do this in one of two ways. They poison or they mutilate. Surgeons cut, and if you go to surgeons, they will usually recommend cutting. However, if the decision for surgery is made, prepare yourself for the experience so it will go as smoothly as possible and you will heal as rapidly as possible. Ask the surgeon and staff to cooperate with you in this. Surgeon and their staff in the operating rooms are often unaware that even though the patient is unconscious, he or she is still hearing and picking up everything said on a subconscious level. I heard one New Age leader say she needed some emergency surgery, and before the operation, she had a talk with the surgeon and the anesthesiologist. She asked them to please play soft music during the operation and for them to talk to her and each other continuously in positive affirmations. She had the nurse in the recovery room do the same thing. So the operation went easily and her recovery was rapid and comfortable. With my own clients, I always suggest they affirm that every hand that touches me in the hospital is a healing hand and expresses only love. And the operation goes quickly and easily and perfectly. Another is, I am totally comfortable at all times. After the surgery, have some soft and pleasant music playing as much as possible, and affirm to yourself, I am healing rapidly, comfortably, and perfectly. Tell yourself every day I feel better and better. If you can, make yourself a tape of a series of positive affirmations. Take your tape recorder to the hospital and play your tape over and over while you rest and recuperate. Notice sensations, not pain. Imagine love flowing from your own heart down through your arms and into your hands. Place your hands over the part that is healing and say to this place, I love you and I'm helping you get well. Swelling of the body represents clogging and stagnation in emotional thinking. We create situations where we get hurt and we cling to those memories. Swelling often represents bottled up tears, feeling stuck and untrapped, or blaming others for our own limitations. Release the past, let it wash away. Take back your own power. Stop dwelling on what you don't want. Use your mind to create what you do want. Let yourself flow with the tide of life. Tumors are false growths. An oyster takes a tiny grain of sand and, to protect itself, grows a hard and shiny shell around it. We call it a pearl and think it's beautiful. We take an old hurt and nurse it and keep pulling the scab off it, and in time we have a tumor. I call this running the old movie. I believe the reason women have so many tumors in the uterus area is that they take an emotional hurt, a blow to their femininity, and nurse it. I call this the he done me wrong syndrome. Just because the relationship ends does not mean there is something wrong with us, nor does it lessen our self-worth. It is not what happens, it is how we react to it. We are each responsible for all our experiences. What beliefs about yourself do you need to change in order to attract more loving kinds of behavior? And this week's affirmation: in the infinity of life where I am, all is perfect, whole, and complete. I recognize my body as a good friend. Each cell in my body has divine intelligence. I listen to what it tells me and know that its advice is valid. I am always safe and divinely protected and guided. I choose to be healthy and free. All is well in my world. Thank you for joining us for this week's weekly reading. I'm Charlie, and I can't wait to talk to you about these topics on Monday. We'll see you next time. Namaste.